As the wait continues for more Splatoon 3 news, one of the most anticipated aspects of the game is about special weapons. So far, we've seen both a new special and the return of Inkzuka. Speculation is all on the table, not only for what could be done for new special ideas, but also for returning ones from the previous games. Not only do I want to predict what specials should return from either game, but I also have a great idea for what Splatoon 3 could do with other returning specials, and it might be something Nintendo's already thought of. Brand new Splatoon 3 specials deserve their own video, which I definitely will do in the future. You can subscribe to see when it releases. I'm going to be doing Splatoon 2 and 3 content all the way up to the release, and if you want news on what's going to happen, as well as my take or thoughts on what Nintendo is going to do up to launch, then subscribing allows you to stay up to date with this information, and get my analysis on it. To help explain my idea, I'd like to show off something pretty interesting with the design of the two specials we've seen so far. The first one is Inkzuka, which while being based on Splatoon 1, shoots a completely different kind of shot. It's a kind of blaster explosion, or a set of them. This explosion reminds me of Inkjet because it's a similar type of shot. Though it does arc and has multiple explosions, it also has the same concept for how you're going to be shooting people with blasts, and likely how the damage is going to be dealt. The new lasers we've seen are also a similar concept. They look like a weird hybrid between Stingray and Killer Whale. Regardless of what exactly shoots them in the first place, they've been shown to be locking onto opponents like Stingray, but also seem to be some kind of deployable, which is more similar to Killer Whale. The beams coming out of them also look a lot like Killer Whale, just a lot smaller. Something we already know is that the specials in Splatoon 2 are based off their Splatoon 1 counterparts, with the sole exception of Bubble Blower. They aren't exactly the same, but a lot of them are based off of the previous aspects. Based on this, and knowing that the two specials we've seen have attributes of both their Splatoon 1 and 2 counterparts, we can see a theme of hybrid specials. This could be the theme for Splatoon 3 specials, combinations of their counterparts from the first and second games. The look of these specials could be a new design, or they could be similar to a previous one from either game. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying all specials will be like this. I think there's definitely going to be a good amount of specials that are going to be direct ports from either game, and of course there's going to be brand new concepts, such as the crab being a turret, since we already know it's a special weapon as confirmed by the Nintendo of America Twitter account. However, I want to go into what specials I think will be ported, which ones are going to be merged, and what changes Nintendo might make to existing specials. Also, just to recap, this means we have a combination of Inkzuka and Inkjet, as well as Killer Whale and Stingray. Bubbler is an instant activation special that lasts 4.5 seconds. While it can be knocked back, it is completely invincible throughout its duration. It can also be chained to teammates if they are right next to you, though that also slightly lowers its duration. Ink Armor activates in 2 seconds, then protects your teammates from 1 shot of damage for 6 seconds. It does take knockback and a bit of piercing damage from higher damage shots. Both of these specials are armor-based specials that are meant to help protect you and your team. While Ink Armor is definitely a weaker version of Bubbler, Bubbler is the more complex and better designed special in my opinion. While the Bubbler definitely needs to be toned down to match the power level of Armor, if not be slightly lower since Armor is the best special in Splatoon 2, I want to keep the look and many mechanics of Bubbler. This Splatoon 3 Bubbler will have the same chaining and look of Splatoon 1. The duration will be the same as Splatoon 2's Ink Armor, going from 4.5 to 6 seconds. It will lose duration by 0.25 seconds for every person it's chained to. The Bubbler will now take 2 seconds to activate, the same as Armor. It will also take the same amount of piercing damage that Armor takes from higher damage shots, and it requires the same amount of damage to break as Armor does, which is 30. While it is activating, it will still be able to be chained to teammates preemptively, with some kind of unique visual. Last of all, we're going to give the Bubbler a pop sound for when it gets shot and broken. Overall, I think this new special would be a great combination of Bubbler and Armor. While it has many of the Splatoon 1 attributes of Bubbler that made it really good, it has the fair attributes of Armor to make it more balanced. This results in a very unique Armor special that requires more thought than the second game, but isn't broken like the first game. Echolocator is an instant activation special that locates everyone on the opposing team for 9 seconds. It is also affected by Cold-Blooded, but we don't know if that's going to return in the next game or not. Tenta missiles can be locked onto members of the opposing team and launches 10 missiles for one person, 5 missiles for 2 people, and 4 missiles for 3 or more people. All of them come down from the sky. Well, we actually already know that these are specials that are definitely not going to be merged. This is because, for those who don't know, Tenta missiles are actually already confirmed for the game. The projectiles from them can be seen from one of the screenshots of Nintendo of America Twitter, and it's very clearly Tenta missiles in the sky. While the method of firing them could be slightly different, I expect this to be minimal changes. Tenta missiles are a very well-known Splatoon 2 special, and really don't have any major design issues. However, I don't think this means Echolocator doesn't have a chance. While I don't think this one can be a hybrid special, Echolocator and Tenta missiles are different enough to where I think it could be set further apart from Tenta missiles, and they could add both of them. However, if they were to do this, then I think Echolocator needs some sort of new aspect to help set it apart. I think there's actually a very simple way to be able to buff Echolocator while keeping it feeling like the same special, which is rather than just revealing the locations of players, it reveals the exact weapons. Now if you have a T-Tech and a Tri-Flanking, you can tell which one is which. I think this definitely adds more to Echolocator while keeping it feeling like the same special. Obviously they'd have to lower the duration by a second or two in order to balance it, since telling where exact weapons are is a pretty sizable buff, but at the end of the day, it's still a great way to add to the special while keeping it still feeling the same. Bomb Rush allows you to throw bombs for about 6 seconds without consuming any of your ink tank. In Splatoon 1, you have to have the same bomb as your sub as you do for the Bomb Rush special. Splat Bomb Launcher is the same as Splat Bomb Rush, except you have the option to throw them farther for a bit less of a fire rate, and you do not have to have the same sub-weapon bomb as the special. Yeah, I'll be real, this special is basically almost the same. They classify this as a different special, but it's very clear they're doing this so they can say Splatoon 2 had a completely different special lineup than the first game. Also, it's worth noting that Bomb Launcher is basically just a better version of Bomb Rush. You're no longer tied to having the same sub-weapon and have the option to throw them further. It doesn't really take anything away. Given all this information, you might be surprised to hear that I still have a pretty good idea for a special hybrid. Rather than combining Splat Bomb Rush with Splat Bomb Launcher, what if we combined Suction Bomb Launcher with Splat Bomb Launcher? This one's pretty simple, alternating between Splat Bomb and Suction Bombs on every throw, or perhaps being given the chance to switch between the two manually, would give it a bit more depth and add a bit more to it. As for the other bomb launchers, well, there's a possibility they could combine it with something like Auto Bomb Launcher and Burst Bomb Launcher, or something like that. But since we don't know what all the sub-weapons are going to be in this game, we don't know what other types of bomb launchers there could be. Nintendo might steer away from other bomb launchers altogether and just stick to the Splat Bomb and Suction Launcher, since those are the two main ones, and there's far more Splat Bomb and Suction Bomb launchers than every other type of bomb launcher combined. Regardless, I think having a bomb launcher that launches multiple types of bombs is a really easy way to add more to the special. Well, I'll skip the introduction on this one, but I think it's best time to leave Splashdown behind. Splashdown was a fairly mediocre Splatoon 2 special that really just looked cool as a concept. In execution, it ended up being insanely weak and underwhelming on every special it was put on. Now hold on, before people accuse me of removing it from the game completely, I actually think Splashdown could fit an entirely different use in the third game so it could still resemble its old self. We know from the trailer and a bit of a closer look at it that you do in fact respawn in the sky. And if you're going to be jumping back to your own side of the map like you do at the start of the trailer, you'll need a way to protect your landing so you don't just get spawn camped every time you respawn, since you have to jump in somewhere. So, I think they should make it so if you super jump into the area that's considered your spawn region, you have a mini splashdown on your landing. This would be a great way to both protect jumps and makes the jumps to spawn feel very unique. Again, this would of course only be for jumps to your own spawn region, as it would totally break jumping to your teammates if you were protected to it, but it's a great way to help separate jumping to spawn from jumping to teammates, and give a bit of protection. I actually don't have much to say about Bubble Blower. I just put it in the same section because it doesn't have a Splatoon 1 counterpart. I think they could port this one over the third game fine. However, I think they should remove the bomb combo. This could be done by reducing the damage bombs do to bubbles by half, or some other way of doing it. As compensation, they could increase the size of the first and second bubbles, which they nerfed in a recent patch. Kraken is an instant activation invincibility special that lasts for 5 seconds. Jumping will one-shot people, and you can swim through the opponent's ink. Shots will knock you back, though. Baller takes 50 frames to activate and has 200 HP, though a lot of damage multipliers to change it. Running people over does 50 damage, and you can explode, which does 180 damage and 50 on the outside. Ultra Stamp summons a giant stamp that you can swing to rush at people, jump and swing, and you can throw it at people. The hits do 40 on the outside and 120 in the middle. It also blocks damage. All of these specials are pretty similar to each other. Hell, Ultra Stamp and Kraken even have the same sound effect when activated, but I think for one of these specials, keeping them as is completely fine. This is of course talking about Ultra Stamp, the ability to block damage but not from everywhere, and the variety of options with swinging, rushing, and throwing gives it a lot of variety. I think Ultra Stamp could remain as is in Splatoon 3. Making a special hybrid out of Kraken and Baller was by far the hardest one to make. Kraken isn't exactly great special design, it activates instantly, it's invulnerable, and it one-shots, and while Baller doesn't do any of those, it's still basically a panic button and you get to roll away for free because of the health, so it's not really the greatest concept either. So when designing this hybrid, it is going to have a few aspects that Baller and Kraken don't have, but try to keep in mind that I tried to make it feel a lot like Splat 1 Kraken that has a good amount of attributes from Baller and be a well-designed special. And you know what? I'm still pretty happy with what I came up with. This new special would look like and be named after Kraken, but it would have a lot of health like Baller does. The new Kraken would have a lot of HP, around 700. For reference, Booyah Bomb has 470. However, a unique aspect to the Splat 3 Kraken is it will have many ways to deal extra damage to it when firing at it. The activation is no longer instant. It gets its armor just as fast as Booyah Bomb does, but it takes 1.5 seconds to fully transform. During this time, you can only swim very slowly, so you're basically immobile. After that, it can swim around for 7 seconds, 2 seconds longer than Splatoon 1. It can still climb walls and swim through enemy ink, just like in the first game. It also takes half the knockback when being shot at, and the jump is a third faster. Last of all, on the positive side, it still eats bombs, but it does take half damage from them. However, as you probably guessed, this comes with some major downsides. The main one being that its jumps no longer one-shot, but do 75 damage, meaning you'll need to hit them twice to get a kill. The main change to this special, however, is dealing damage to it. Kraken may have a lot of HP, but during both its jump attack and its transformation, it takes 1.5 extra damage, meaning shooting at it at that time will deal massive damage to it. Even while it's swimming, shooting the back tendrils of the Kraken will also deal 1.5 extra damage, which will be just another opportunity to deal more damage and break the armor. If the armor goes below 200, the look will change and a sound will play, both to warn the player and tell to the enemy that they almost broke it. Think of it the same way as Baller losing one of its rings. It's a warning that you don't have much health left. If the enemy team manages to completely break your Kraken armor, you will be stunned with no ability to move for half a second, basically ensuring that you're going to be killed. However, if the Kraken runs out fully, you'll only be stunned for a fourth of a second. This still leaves you vulnerable, but a lot less so. Still with me? Yeah, that was a lot of changes, but I feel like this rework is something I'm happy with. It keeps its Splatoon 1 Kraken aspect while still having the HP management issue of Baller. It's definitely a lot weaker and stronger in other areas, but I feel like there's a good amount of counterplay options with the HP damage and the knockback, while the Kraken user still has a lot of ways to add pressure with the extra duration. So, I think it's a pretty well-balanced special at the end of the day, and I think aspects like HP or knockback could be easily adjusted if these numbers are unfavorable. Overall, very happy with this new and improved Splatoon 3 Kraken. Inkjet allows you to transform into a jetpack in which you can hover and slightly raise your momentum in the air. You do have a slightly bigger hitbox, and you shoot explosions that deal damage based on how close you hit the opponents to. Booyah Bomb allows you to raise into the air and collect energy via booyahs. After 2 seconds you can throw it, which will paint the area and do damage at a rate of around 3 per second. Alright, these are two specials that I feel should just return as is, which is why I'm grouping them together. You might remember I said Inkzuka has similar shots to Inkjet. However, I think Inkjet is still different enough to where having both isn't an issue. Inkzooka seems to shoot 3 shots, whereas Inkjet is a timing-based special with a maximum of around 7 to 8, depending if special power-up will have the same effect in the next game. Also, I think having another transformation aggressive form special is something the game's currently lacking. Inkjet was just so well done in the second game that I really want to see it return, even if Zooka is slightly based on the shots. The special Booyah Bomb shares similarities with his Inkstrike, and I have a much better idea for combining that with another special. Booyah Bomb is another really well designed special. It's the first one that gets the idea of giving HP while having downsides. The immobility and the time to charge makes it really well done, and it's much better than Inkstrike in terms of having a limited area to launch, but the actual explosion that lands on the ground is more effective, both in terms of being able to be painted over, which makes it easier to counterplay, but dealing more damage, which makes it more threatening for moving people. Basically, Booyah Bomb's great, let's keep it as is. Inkstrike first has you enter an immobile position where you launch a giant missile into the sky. This can be launched anywhere on the map and explodes, dealing massive damage and painting the area underneath it. Inkstorm summons a projectile special, which you can throw wherever you like at any time. Once it hits a wall or a surface, it will transform into a storm which travels slowly, paints over the floor, and deals slight amounts of tick damage. I feel like everyone forgot about Inkstrike in the first game. It wasn't the most memorable special, but launching a giant strike from the sky that would ink an area on the map anywhere you want was really fun and cool to use. However, in its current state, I think it's way too similar to Booyah Bomb, which is just better designed in almost every way, so I don't really want to change that. However, I think this special could be a lot more unique by merging it with another special, Inkstorm. Alright, so here's the merge special idea. First up, the actual launching strike part is the same as Splatoon 1. It's still a missile, and you still get to select anywhere on the map. However, rather than launching a strike, it instead deploys the Inkstorm. Now, I do think this Inkstorm should behave differently than the one in Splatoon 2 to be more similar to Inkstrike. First up, the deployed storm will travel slower by 25%. This is to make it more stationary. Don't get me wrong, it will still definitely cover some ground, but this will be much more in one area. The storm will also be larger by around 10% and paint better slightly by around 5%. This makes the storm more stationary and better at painting, which is more similar to Inkstrike. To compensate for this, we're going to reduce the duration slightly by around half a second, and reduce the damage so it's only 21 per second rather than 24. This is because the storm being stationary and lasting so long makes it really good at forcing people out of a location. So reducing the damage and duration means it won't force them out for as long, and they will have longer to move out of said location, which should help to balance it. Overall, I think this is a very unique hybrid that maintains the aspects of both specials fairly well, which is pretty unique considering a lot of the other hybrids have tended to favor one or the other. There you have it. That's all my special ideas. I think hybrid specials are a great concept that can lead to a lot of innovative and different specials. There are definitely some specials that shouldn't be in, or some specials that shouldn't be changed, but hybrids are a great concept worth looking into. This isn't even going into brand new Splatoon 3 specials, which there could be even more ideas for and make this by far the best special lineup we've ever seen. I really hope Nintendo looks into the idea of hybrid specials. It's a great idea with a lot of potential. But hey, that's just my take on it. Let me know other special hybrid ideas you guys have, and if you liked the video, be sure to subscribe to help support the channel. Thank you so much for watching.